Hey everybody, Quantum here, and in this video I want to review a Sapphire Amethyst Jafar items list. This is an interesting deck that popped up during the Merlin 10K. The player was actually on stream, and they started off 3-0, beating Zan in their feature match to go 3-0, but then it looks like they lost their next three. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened. So it is unfortunate. I tested this deck a little bit, and for me, just from what I've tested, I opted to change a few things. It's definitely a pretty strong deck, but it can be a little tough to pilot, especially if your opponent like holds some of their powerful removal for the cards that they know you want to like set up, if that makes sense. Like it's pretty clear, like you play this Jafar and you might have like a lamp set up, and it's pretty telegraphed that you're going to try to shift Jafar most likely. But where this deck can really shine is against, I think, other mid-range decks. To me, it does struggle a little bit against aggro, and for that reason, like, you're not playing too many one drops. Obviously, you just have the item package, so the deck is kind of here, like neither here nor there. But it is a very interesting deck, and it feels really good when it gets its engine rolling. And again, you can look at the feature match of the player playing it for high level competitive play out at the Southside Gaming channel, I believe it was. I could be wrong on that tournament. I do apologize. But one of the main reasons I want to cover this now is because we're, not mid May yet. We're still like, it's May. Well, I guess we're almost mid May. It's May 12th. And we are starting to get some Reign of Jafar cards being revealed. And what's really interesting is we're getting a very powerful Amethyst Sapphire tool in this 3-cost song. If I can find it, this one here. Um, to me, this song looks pretty good. Into the Unknown, a 3-cost inkable song that's basically a Let It Go, but for exerted characters. And it's really good for the simple reason that it costs 3. And there's a lot of good 3-cost cards that you can play in BURPLE, mainly the Bell, which you can play on turn 1. So this card can really, early game against aggro, where you don't really care how much ink you give them as long as you don't give them draw to like kind of regas. And into the mid or late game, this thing can hit a lot of unassuming things. One of the main problems with Blurple, in my opinion, too, is like the shark, and you just want to have a lot of answers for shark. While the card does have to be exerted for you to get the ability on the Into the Unknown. Like you could play some cards to force exertions. There's that new item that also exerts. That's a 2-cost item, which you could maybe fit into this list. It is a Blurple item of all things too. And what's nice about all of these items that you could potentially play is that you can recur them always with the Tamatoa, right? You can banish them with the Bell, recur them with the Tamatoa, get the tap down ability, or tap down with Elsa, and then sing the song with something else. But you have a lot, you will want a lot of answers for the Jafar. The 3 Hades, which I'll talk about why there's 3 Hades and not 4, and 2 Let It Goes as your other answers for the Jafar. You could do things like Merlin Genie, Merlin Jafar. Obviously, you don't really want to do that into an exerted half shark if you don't have to, but those are your other outs to it. And then moving damage counters probably isn't going to be a solution either. So, this Bell can seem a little underwhelming at times, but it definitely has a place. And just as a shift on 3, if you get this Bell out on turn 1, which, it's a pretty high roll combo to get like the item plus the Bell plus the shift Bell by 3, it is very powerful if you do get it. So why would you want to consider playing Jafar items? First of all, as a Blurple deck, you're aiming to offset the disadvantage of going second by gaining back the ink advantage through ramping of the Tipo and or Sail, and then Amethyst does what Amethyst wants to do in ramping, and that's very powerful. You do have some good anti-location tech as well. The Crabs and the Cuscos can really help take out pesky locations on the opposing end. And you just, being Amethyst, have a solid draw engine, right? It's one of the few decks that were Sapphire that never relied on the Hiram engine, and that transfers obviously into, post Hiram ban very, very well. But the main reason to play this is because of this card right here. The Lamp is probably one of the best cards that you could play because, you play it for 2, and then you don't have to pay anything to use the ability. You can just have it sit on the board and proc the ability whenever you want, and that is to banish it. And then, of course, you can reoccur it with the Tamatoa, which makes it even more powerful. But it's not a once per turn, so if you have multiple in play, you can banish multiple and draw a bunch of cards and bounce a bunch of stuff if you wanted. But banish this item. If you have a character named Jafar in play, you draw 2 cards. If you have a character named Genie in play, return chosen character with cost 4 or less to their player's hand. So why is this so good? Because there's a very good Genie now that we play, right, in Wish Fulfilled. And there's a couple of Jafars that we could play in this iteration. Yes, you play more Jafars in the Steel Amethyst version, but you still play 8 Jafars in this version, and you can just have these lamps sit on board until you're ready to proc their ability and gain the advantage. Whether or not it's simply just banishing it to draw cards or banishing it to draw cards and gain the lore off the Jafar, right? You can kind of tailor that to how you want. Interesting to see the foils spiking up in price here. That's kind of nice because I did pick up a couple for like 75 cents or something before they spiked. In anticipation that we were going to get good playable Jafars this set, which I think I'm really just still waiting to see, but there's still a few cards to be revealed. But the thing about the lamp is you don't have to choose one or the other ability. If you have a Jafar and a Genie in play and multiple lamps, let's say, you can bounce multiple things and draw cards all at the same time, right? So if I have 2 lamps in play and I end up having, this Jafar, Exerted, and a Genie in play, I can bounce one of your things, bounce another one of your things with the second lamp, put 2 cards back to your hand, draw 4 cards, gain 4 lore. That's a game-winning play right there, right? Even if I don't have to bounce your stuff, just banishing to draw cards, right? Because it's not a tempo loss. I played this earlier on in turns, and I'm banishing it to draw more cards when I can maybe have all my ink available to play whatever I draw into. And like I said, later on in the game, you really want to hit those Hades and the Let It Goes to deal with the high-end threats your opponents might be playing. The deck does have some resiliency, right? I can't really fit in the Iago Peter Pan Shadow package, but that is also a potential option. There's not really too much other hard removal options, but this list built the way it is, like I said, it does have some cracks in the armor, but I think those might be solved by getting more efficient removal, which the Into the Unknown might do, right? It's going to shut down Diablo hardcore, which is a problem for this deck, right? Because you want to draw a bunch of cards, and unless you have the very specific outs to the Diablo, which in this case would be like Genie or, Crab with the Genie if it's on like a Cove, which would suck, but it happens. Or like Jafar or Let It Goes. Like it's your answers to Diablo are just so far out. It hurts you to draw cards with a Diablo Exerted on the board. But potentially singing that song turn 2 when they can turn 2 shift Diablo, right? Because if you get your bell item or your item to banish the bell, to play the bell, and then sing the Into the Unknown on turn 2, right after the bell's ink has dried, you just deal with the turn 2 Diablo, and you both end up spending 3 cards, right? Because your opponent played Diablo, discarded an action to shift the Diablo, that's 3 cards. You did an item which replaced itself hopefully in Popsicle, banished it for bell, sang Into the Unknown. So you're actually ahead on card advantage in that interaction, and that's assuming you're on the draw, right? And you're reacting to your opponent. So the Into the Unknown can do a lot. Obviously, again, the limitation is that the character has to be exerted. If your opponent thinks it's safe to quest with their shark and you hit them with that Into the Unknown, that can be a huge tempo swing in your benefit as well. So I think that card will do a good amount for this deck, and it's worth taking a look at because you are playing one of the most, if not the most powerful card from set 7 in the Tamatoa Happy as a Clam, and this ability to recur items, reoccurring what's literally one of the best items in the lamp, giving you so much versatility, drawing you cards for free, bouncing stuff on top of that, because ideally turn 3, right, you're playing a Genie. That's what BURPLE wants to do. BURPLE wants to turn 1 ink, turn 2 ramp, turn 3 Genie, right? That's what they want to do. And then you got a Genie out early. You're questing for probably 2, 4, 6 maybe before the Genie can actually be directly answered. By the time the answer comes around for Genie, you developed other big threats. You potentially dealt with their board with like Crab boosting up Tipo and crashing, dropping Elsa's to tap down, taking care of McDuck Manors or any other locations with Cusco, setting up Tamatoa recursion lines with the lamp and or Popsicle, 2 amazing items to recur. And then you also have this kind of weird item that I give the guy who played it in the tournament props for, because I never really looked at this card, but this is just pay 1 get rush, which actually is pretty nice, because even if you raw play out a Jafar and you don't have a shift target, because that's an item, it's not like Vitalosphere where you have to pay 1 to banish it to gain the rush and the +2 in that case. This is just banish and gain rush. So you can set that up a couple of turns ago. When you drop this Jafar, banish it, gain rush, take out a threat, it's exerted, it has evasive, so hopefully it's protected. Then if you have any follow-up actions like singing friends or something, you're gaining lore while drawing cards. You banish your lamp, you're drawing cards because it's exerted right after the Croquet Mallet. So there's a lot of cool synergies with this deck that you can use, and I've pulled that off in matches before. Like I've had this Croquet Mallet on board, and I was stubborn. I had a bell, and I was like, I'm not banishing this because I knew I was going for the Jafar line. I dropped the Jafar, I banished the Croquet Mallet, give the Jafar rush. I forget what I took out. I don't know why I can't remember these matches all that well. I took out something. It wasn't like too significant. It was like a 2 or 3 drop card. I took out something, and then I had a lamp in play too, so I banished it, drew 2 cards, and then I just like snowballed from there and won the game. Like I just came back and won the game. I was on the draw too for that match against Amber. It wasn't discard. Was it Amber Steel? Maybe it was Amber Steel aggro, not the song version. I mean, it's hard to tell these days because, like, if you play the match so far in, you're seeing Cinderellas and Storms and stuff, and then you're just like, well, I didn't see a whole new world, so I guess you're not Amber Steel Song, or you just didn't draw it. I don't know. And you're playing aggro cards, but Amber Steel Song plays aggro. Anyways, the deck still feels pretty good. It still does what Sapphire wants to do in ramping back into the advantage. You do have some hard removal options. The reason for my ratios here, no McDuck Manners in my build. The player who put this deck on stream was playing McDuck Manners. For me, your turn 4 should be Genie or Jafar because I want to get this lamp online as quickly as possible if I do have it. And the reason I'm on 3 Hades instead of 4 is because when I was on 4, which I was playing, I just, it was like one game I opened double Hades or something, or I drew into the second one on like turn 2. And I was just like, I hate this. Like, I aggressively mulligan for ones. Like, I want to see Popsicle on 1. And so I'll mulligan away like 6, 7 cards sometimes. And playing 4 of a 7 cost uninkable, drawing into 1 or 2 of those, it just, especially if you draw 2, it almost feels like you lose the game, right? Unless your opponent also has a very, very slow start. So like I just wanted to offset that a little bit by lowering the ratio, and then I added a Let It Go instead. So compared to the other players' deck, they played like 1 Let It Go, 4 Hades, and don't get me wrong, Hades is definitely better, but like I just wanted to be able to draw into a Let It Go instead of that 4th Hades, so I can ink this early if I do see it. I just hate bricking. Like I come from the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, and like this is gonna sound so cocky, but it's not meant to. I'm like a lot of these games that I play, sometimes I end up losing. And I'm like, if I didn't brick, or I just didn't have this like, didn't have to play this brick card, I'm like, why am I playing this deck if I brick and I lose because of it? And I'll like take the card out of my deck, or I'll switch the deck. Because I swear to God, in Yu-Gi-Oh, it's a game where like, unless both you and your opponent play perfectly, there are some games that should be unwinnable for you. But Yu-Gi-Oh is such a complex game that you can usually spot and that's why Yu-Gi-Oh is a great game. Is like you can spot ways to bait your opponent to bait out interactions, and then like you can play through their board and like beat them going second. Again, if you've watched my Yu-Gi-Oh montages, like as long as you have a playable hand, you can sometimes beat what seems to be an impossible scenario. And in Lorcana, it should also be that way. But when you brick, like it feels terrible. If you like, again, not trying to make excuses, but like you're just like, if this was an inkable card, right, maybe I would have been able to like not miss an ink or play better on curve, or didn't have to ink the card I wanted to actually save for this matchup, but I had to ink it to continue to contest the board, right? These high cost uninkables cost you games. And so that's my main reason for reducing it from 4 to 3. I know it sounds like it's not a huge difference, but it again, play with 4 and grind out 10 matches, and if you ever draw 2 Hades in your opening hand, you will know exactly what I mean. Or if you play any deck and you play a lot of high cost uninkables, like, and you see them early, like there's a reason why we don't play some of the most powerful high cost uninkables in the game, and it's because it's like it's to draw that card in your opening hand is just it just puts you at such a disadvantage. Like people are in and out of Be Prepared for another reason, right? Because of like Ursula Rip and stuff, but like Be Prepared is such a powerful card, but the 7 cost uninkability of it still hurts you, right? Like just see, like you guys know, like Be Prepared has been around since the first chapter. Drawing that card early on, it just really hurts. It doesn't hurt to draw Lamp. It doesn't hurt to draw Croquet Mallet because again, like the Bell being online, these cards actually have value early on too, because again, you're probably ramping by turn 4 into the Genie, and again, seeing a Genie or 2 early actually doesn't hurt you because you're planning to play this on 3, which is actually fine. The only card that hurts to draw early is the Hades. And don't get me wrong, you have to play this card. It's an amazing card for this deck, and you need that hard removal and then putting a body on board. But that would be the only like annoying part of it. And this is where I think this song, not that it's going to replace Hades, but this is where this song I think really helps Blurple, and it gives you, not this one, oh my goodness, it gives you the option to remove stuff early more efficiently, and with your 3 cost cards, again, mainly the bell. Bell's going to have value now beyond just being that really strong opener. Like, to play Bell later on in the game, it doesn't feel good. You're usually inking her. But now you're like, well, I can develop a 3 cost singer later on, and I can sing this into the unknown if I draw into it later. So, like, it's fine. Um, and then, I don't know if they have it on Dreamborn yet. Do they have the item? They do. This Ice Spikes card, like, just like, there was a card from the first chapter. It was an action, and I think it was Freeze, and it was an uninkable 2 cost card that just said exert chosen character, like, and it's an uninkable 2 cost card, and you wouldn't really play that because it's uninkable. It's a 2 cost, and it doesn't really provide you any value, right? You need to have an interaction on the board that allows you to actually, like, exert a meaningful character on the opponent's end, so you can challenge it with your character and actually out it. This card being an item, though, like the secondary ability here, I don't even rate. Like, it's whatever. I mean, maybe it comes into play sometimes, but you're not playing it for that. Being an inkable card is a huge bonus, and just being a thing that can exert, right? That's really strong in my opinion. For a Blurple deck that just wants to play characters and go wide anyways, being able to deal with opposing boards more efficiently is really, really strong. The Like, this card hits the board, it's a dead card because you don't really have ways to banish it except for the bell. But when you do see the bell, you probably opt to banish this, because with popsicles you can always just proc the ability right away and then just get them back with the Tamatoa. This card is the card you'd probably want to banish with the bell if you can. And then again, assuming you don't have a turn 1 bell, but if you have bell later on and this is just stuck on your board, you banish this, you play the bell for free, and then if you have the Tamatoa, right, you can play the Tamatoa because you didn't pay anything to play the bell. Recur this item, and then you have, and your opponent knows you have, which can play into the board state psychologically. Like, oh, they're gonna exert my character. Oh, they have a Jafar or a genie up with a crab or something potentially. Like, they can just instantly out my own evasives or out my shark or whatever. Force exert my shark. Like, and it's hard for them to play around that now. So I think there's some legs to this deck. We're going to have to obviously test it in the new set, but it's definitely a deck that, for Reign of Jafar, I think looks really cool. And again, we may get some more purple playable Jafars. I think this card is really underrated too. This card actually did a decent amount of work. Yes, it costs 4, but it quests for 2, and it usually will come down as like a 4/5, at least for me when I was playing it. And then if you do have some drawing, or you're able to generate some decent card advantage, it could be like a 6/5. Right, or more, and that's really good. Like, there were times where I was just challenging with this thing to clear off big threats, and I wasn't even questing with it, and I was like, yeah, this card is just like doing work. It was rarely like a super small character, but even when it was, it's still a 5 body at 4, so it's like not even that bad to play as like a 2/5 even. Like, yes, it gets outed by Brawl and stuff, but it's like what Sisu Emboldened Warrior is for, like, when you're with, based on your opponent's hand side, but this one you can control because it's based on your hand size, and we know that you want to draw cards with this deck, right? And what's crazy is, like, bringing back items from your discard, not necessarily drawing cards, but it's increasing your hand size, and then if you play popsicles, they replace themselves, so this card just benefits furthermore off the Tamatoa. Like, there's a lot of cool synergies with this deck that, until you start grinding and playing with it a little bit, and again, I haven't played too much with it myself, but from what I have experienced, there's some cool synergy. The one of Finders Keepers, I mean, it's good. I don't know if you need to continue to play this, because you're really looking to just sing friends as much as you can and draw off the lamp, in my opinion. Like, I see this card and I'm just like, do I really want to take a turn off to draw a bunch of cards, or do I just want to wait for the lamp and the friends, which is just more efficient ways to draw? Again, it didn't really come up all that much, so I don't know if you'd want to continue to play just the one of. Don't get me wrong, when you're in a mid-range matchup or a control matchup, this card is amazing, and I think that's maybe why you play it, is because you can afford to slow the game down and then just out advantage your opponent. But in other matchups, this card just feels like, I wish this was something else, and I'm just inking it anyways. But I guess that's why you could play it, because it's ink at its worst, and it's pretty decent at its best. In this deck, at least, is what I find. No Merlins, no Mims. You want to just constantly keep a board presence up. You constantly want to keep replenishing your hand. You want to play towards that Jafar Genie Lamp combination. You're not looking to bounce and gain advantage through a slow, grindy game like that. You're getting enough advantage through, basically all these cards are overstated for the most part. They have really strong abilities like the Crab, the Elsa, the Kuzco instantly outing a location, the Tamatoa bringing back items, right? The Hades instantly outing something, the Jafar literally being an alternative win condition. This Jafar being an overstated body on 4, most likely coming down at least in the willpower at the very least. So like there's a lot that this deck has going for it, and it's worth testing out in my opinion. Just again, the lamp is just such a strong card. So anyways, that's enough rambling on. Let me know in the comment section below if you enjoyed this video, if you've tested any of this deck in particular, but it's definitely one worth considering, especially I don't know if these cards have been going up in price yet. It doesn't look like it based on the TCG market prices, but I think this deck gets a lot better. And again, I hopefully will be able to test this with my friend prior to the cards coming out, because again, if you watch my channel, you know that we test on TTS a little bit of some of the new cards. And I mean, this card is out in Dreamborn, so maybe I could build the deck even if there's no other new additions, if anything, with just this new spell, and just test to see how good it feels. I'll probably start off with like 2. I don't know if I'll play a Fora or if it will be a Fora. Again, I got to test to see. But I do think this card does a lot for the deck in terms of just a very efficient form of removal simply because it costs 3. Okay, that's going to wrap it up, guys. Let me know if you made this far in the video. Thank you again for watching. Let me know what you think. Quantum is out.